Okay, so a couple housekeeping things. I know some of you guys are new, but a couple of you guys have been coming. I got a job where I am picking up some shifts on Sundays. So going forward, I'm going to make this a little bit earlier from 10 to noon instead of noon to 2. So I hope that's okay. Although I have a feeling that this job might not last very long, so we might be back to our regularly scheduled program. So I'm just gonna, usually I do all of the events for the year ahead, but because things are kind of uncertain and I'm just gonna do it for like quarterly ahead. So I'll put up the next 4, or 3 through March. And then, kind of as things are changing, add more that way. And then I think that was it. Oh, and then we're still gonna do virtual for a while. Definitely at least through June or July, and then we'll kind of reassess and see what's going on with the vaccine, etc. If we want to keep this format, or maybe throw in a couple in real life ones. So just so you guys know kind of what I'm thinking about for the next year. So, all right. So for people who haven't been here before, welcome. Anything you want to share about your journey so far in astrology, or any questions about kind of today, or anything like that? Anyone? No?
Hi, my name is Kate,
Hi, Kate.
and I just want to say hi to my sister Andy, who's also on the call.
Oh, yay.
She's the reason I'm here. I think she and I kind of have a similar approach to astrology of like, it's fun and interesting, and we play.
Awesome. Well, welcome. Thanks for bringing your sister.
Hello.
Hi.
This is Kim. I've been interested in astrology like for my whole life. My first book was Linda Goodman's Sun Signs.
Love that.
And I've been taking some of Deborah Silverman's seminars online.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm on her waiting list to join her school, Applied Astrology. And I had a reading yesterday with one of her students.
Did you like it? Was it good?
I found out some things about myself, and so I just, people don't realize there's more to you than just your sun sign.
Right. Yeah,
So,
for sure.
So it was really interesting, and due to this whole pandemic, I've just been finding myself doing a lot of research, and I was told yesterday that I have a progressed moon. So she told me to do some homework and find out about that.
Okay, great. Like so all of our planets are progressing in our chart. Did she mean that your progressed moon just changed signs?
So my sun is in the 7th house. And so she basically said, so I'm a Scorpio. So I have a double Scorpio, and she said my sun is in the 7th house, and she said I'm not sure if it was Libra going into Scorpio because I'm on the cusp of Sagittarius. So she told me to look into that, to go onto astro.com and do some homework in reference to that.
Yeah, so for those of you who are unfamiliar what progressed planets are, so you have your natal chart, your birth chart, that was, your chart the moment that you were born, but the planets keep moving and keep going through the sky. And if you take each day or hour that they've been moving for like the month after you were born and apply that to each year of your life going forward, they'll change signs, make conjunctions with other planets, do things like that. And those are all significant. It's a timing technique. And it's one that we could definitely explore later if you guys are interested in that, because it can kind of change the way that you relate to your sun sign or your moon sign or things like that. Or they can make aspects that you're not necessarily seeing in your natal chart, but you're still kind of feeling that energy in your life. And the moon, because it moves the fastest, makes the most changes through progressions throughout your life.
Hi, my name is Lana. Hi, everyone here.
Hi.
This is also new for me. I started my journey about 2 months ago. Someone did a reading for my daughter, and the reading was concerning. So I took on the project, kind of. I'm like, let me figure it out. Let me understand how can I be more of the support for her in her life. How can I understand her better? So this is completely new. All these progressions but also it's a little bit confusing because I was born in Russia. And then so I have natal chart, and then some astrologer says you can use your relocation chart as well for transit. So this is confusing.
Do you have your birth time?
Yes.
Yeah, so relocation charts apply to what's called your solar or annual perfection, so your birthday each year. So yeah, that is another timing technique. You guys are bringing up advanced astrology stuff. I love it. And so when you look at your birthday each year, where you are in the world will affect that chart, and that kind of gives you insights into how your next year is going to be. So some people like get really into it, and they'll look all around the world to see where their best chance of having a good year will be, and they'll like make sure that on their birthday they're in that part of the world so they have like good luck for that year. So yeah, you can get as into it as you want. Most of us don't have that ability though, unfortunately.
So you can't do that with if you were born in New Jersey, can you do that with other countries?
Oh yeah, no, you can. So where you are on your birthday, that's where you would do your relocation chart for that year. So if you're here, for wherever you are. So but some people like they'll be living say in New Jersey, but their relocation chart will be better if they were in say like I don't know, Spain. So they'll travel to Spain on their birthday to make sure that their chart for their birthday for the year will be the best. But most people don't have the ability to do that.
I see now. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Great questions, guys. Anybody else have any thoughts or want to talk a little bit about astrology before we jump into 2021?
So I took this is Kim again. So I took a Zoom. It was just a Zoom. It was one of Deborah's someone that worked with Deborah. And so she did a breakdown on a Zoom call of someone who she did a reading for. And so she showed us, the whole chart. And then she went down and she showed all the placements and the symbols and everything. She was talking to the person that she was reading, and she was going throughout her life, different dates, different times, different events that went on. So that was really informative and was very interesting. That was like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. So kind of what we do here is we have a different topic for each month that we explore. So like last month, we did the upcoming conjunction between Jupiter and Saturn. And before that, we did the Venus cycle. And before that, we did some timing techniques, and we look at charts kind of related to the topic. So we do have some charts for today, but they're more mundane astrology, so kind of like world events of what's going on. But if we have time at the end, I'm happy to look at some people's charts, and we can do a little bit of an analysis.
So about what just happened yesterday with Venus, the energies.
So the Venus, each cycle or each planet has what's called a synodic cycle. So they have a cycle of how they go throughout the sky, and some are more predictable than others. And Venus's is very consistent. So we went over that and kind of how that works. And we're actually going to be bringing that up again today because the Venus plays a part in the themes of 2021. And in 2020, we had Venus go retrograde in Gemini, and at the end of 2021 in December, Venus is going to go retrograde in Capricorn, and will be conjunct Pluto when it does that. So got stuff to talk about.
And so the great conjunction that's coming up on the 21st, that is going to be like something else.
Yes. So yeah, we did talk about that last time in detail, but just to recap a little bit, Jupiter and Saturn are making a conjunction in Aquarius on the 21st, and they'll be in Aquarius for the first time in like a really long time, and it'll be usually every 20 years those two planets meet in the same element for 200-year blocks, and this year marks the change of the block from Earth into air, so that's very significant, and it's going to kind of really change the tone of the backdrop of kind of what's going on in the world. So we're living through exciting times. Great. All right, well, that's a good segue. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll go over 2021. So the theme for this year is changes. So 2020, as you all know, we went through a lot of changes, but mostly this year was about breaking down pre-existing structures and identifying things that no longer work. And 2021 is kind of the start of this new world that we're building. So I was talking to my sister actually last night and was talking about how people from the 1980s would probably recognize today, from the 90s would probably recognize today, 2000s would probably recognize today. But I don't think that we people that are alive today will necessarily recognize the world as much in 2030. I think we're kind of in new territory, and where we're going, we're building that as we go. As we were just talking about, the Great Conjunction from Earth into air is going to be the backdrop of that. So looking ahead, at least it's not 2020. We had a lot of really heavy astrology this year, and the astrology of next year, while intense, I don't think is quite as heavy as it was for 2020. So major themes for 2021 are, we're going to look at Jupiter, we're going to look at the eclipses, fixed star Algol, the USA Pluto return, and then Saturn square Uranus and Venus, and then look at some specifics. So Jupiter, I'm back, baby. So throughout 2020, part of why this year was so tough is because Jupiter was in Capricorn. In Capricorn, Jupiter is in its fall. So different planets have different dignities. So what that means is that it has more or less power in a sign depending on how it likes to be in that sign. And each planet has specific signs that it likes or dislikes to be in. Jupiter does not like to be in Capricorn. It wants to expand up, it wants to reach for the stars, it wants to be optimistic and promote growth, and it just doesn't have the ability to really do that in Capricorn. So it's moving into Aquarius, where it doesn't have positive or negative feelings towards, it's kind of neutral. And while generally we would say that that's not the greatest placement for that, because it's no longer in its fall, it's going to feel a lot better. And then it's going to be actually it's going to race through Aquarius. Usually it takes about a year to get through a sign, but it's moving really fast, and it's going to get to Pisces by May, and it loves being in Pisces. In traditional astrology, which is an astrology that I use, Jupiter rules Pisces, not Neptune. Neptune ruling Pisces and Uranus ruling Aquarius are modern rulerships. And although I definitely take those into considerations, I do tend to stick to the traditional rulerships, which has Mars ruling Scorpio, Jupiter ruling Pisces, and Saturn ruling Aquarius. So the ability of Jupiter to reduce harm, I think, is going to be very key for this year. And I think that's why 2020 was so difficult, because Jupiter had no power to kind of buffet all these other major players that were kind of wreaking havoc in the sky. So just some dates. So the day before the Great Conjunction, the 20th, Jupiter will move into Aquarius. And I think we're all just gonna take a big sigh when that happens and just feel a lot of relief and be like, oh my gosh, okay, got some optimism, some hope for the future, we can move on. And then it'll race through Aquarius. And then in May 14th, it'll move into Pisces. And it goes retrograde pretty soon afterwards. So we don't have a lot of time with it in Pisces before it retrogrades back into Aquarius. But I definitely kind of think that around that time is when we're really going to turn a corner in terms of the pandemic, because Jupiter is so happy in Pisces. And if you look at the timetable for the vaccine, that's when it's supposed to really get to the general population. So I think that it's in May and June where we're really going to start to see things opening up. Maybe we'll be able to go to restaurants without living in fear. I think that's going to be a main turning point. So we're getting there, people. We're almost there. We just got to make it through the winter, get into the spring. And I think that we'll be able to, you know, be out in public again. And then down here, there are just some nice dates. I feel like after this year, just days that are going to be good, I wanted to really bring emphasis to, because, you know, just days to look forward to, or days to maybe plan chatting with your friends or going for a walk with your kids. We have some nice Venus Jupiter conjunctions, which are the two benefics in the sky. There's actually another one later on in the year I forgot to put on here, but I'll look at my dates that I have. And then I think that June 3rd will be nice because Venus likes being in Cancer. Jupiter likes being in Pisces, so I think that'll be a nice date. And then I don't know why, I think this will be a really nice time too, so I think June will be a good month. So we have a lot to look forward to. So as we will see in a little bit when I talk about the Saturn-Uranus square, I was doing a lot of research into financial crises, which we will discuss. But it was interesting when I was looking back at the 2008 crisis, we had Pluto. So this year we had 2020, we had 3 Jupiter-Pluto conjunctions, and we had Jupiter in Capricorn. And in the 2008 crisis, they had kind of really similar things in the sky happening. So I think that'll be, I mean, we should have known that, you know, where we're heading was where we're heading. But then I think it'll be interesting kind of what unfolds in the next few years, because as you remember, the Occupy Wall Street movement kind of came out of the 2008 crisis, and we do have some upcoming transits where I really expect there to be a lot of social unrest and you know, protesting and political activity. So keep an eye out for that, because I just feel like we're setting the stage for different transits that are going to be happening in the next few years. Before we move on, any questions about Jupiter? No? Okay. All right. So next, we have the eclipses. So the eclipses, the reason I have dragons here is because the eclipses involve the north and south node, which are called the head and the tail of the dragon. The north node is the head of the dragon, and that's kind of where you're going, where you're hungry for change, new ideas. And the south node is the tail of the dragon, and that's about where you kind of need to let things go, where you fall into old patterns, old dramas, things that you need to let go so you can, but are easy to fall back into. Okay, so we do have an eclipse tomorrow. And a few months ago, we did talk about the astrology of the election. And during that talk, I did bring up this upcoming eclipse because the 14th tomorrow is when they're supposed to ratify the election to make whoever won the official winner. And it's super interesting that we have an eclipse on that day, especially in Sagittarius, because that's the south node. And so I've been looking into a lot about eclipses, and actually probably want to do a whole month on eclipses sometime soon. And you don't really feel the effects of eclipses for 3 to 6 months. And as we're going to see when I bring up some of the later things that are going on in this year, March is like a really active month. Like a lot of stuff's happening in March, and that's when we're going to feel the effects of this eclipse. And I just think that's interesting timing. So I think that March is a month to watch out for, and things that happen tomorrow, I think it's just going to be the seed. And a lot of people are going to be like, oh, nothing happened, like the eclipse didn't really matter, but it is going to matter when we really feel the ramifications of whatever was set in motion in March and for the first half of 2021.
Can I ask a question about that?
Of course.
If my birthday is in March, would that have any specific effects for me?
I would just keep an eye on kind of what goes on for this next week, and you'll kind of get the beginning parts of the story, and you'll see kind of how that story keeps going. I don't think that there are other things going on later in the year that might have more of an impact on kind of like your solar return for 2021. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
You're welcome. So also interesting, we have a lot of Sag eclipse activity. So we only have one more Gemini eclipse, and that's on the north node of where we're going, but there's a lot of Sag activity. And as I mentioned before, right now the south node is in Sagittarius. That's about things we're letting go. I think another theme of this year that I'm going to be bringing up when we talk about Venus is that we're really going to be mourning the past a little bit this year. We went through a lot of changes this year. We are still in it, kind of, so we haven't had a chance to process and integrate and really mourn what this year could have been for us. I know just personally, a lot of people had plans. I had plans of things to do, and it's okay to mourn what could have been. And I think we really need to create that time and space that we have the ability to do that, because we're kind of building a new world right now. I don't think that there is going back to normal. I think there's moving forward. And if we give ourselves time, we'll be able to do that in a healthier way instead of a more reactive way. And all of this activity in Sag on the south node is just going to kind of make us confront those things that we need to let go. And so just not trying to fight that and kind of going with that energy. While painful, I think it'll be a healthy pain, a healing pain, versus a like fighting against the ocean pain, fighting against the inevitable. And then, so the nodes move backwards. They're always in retrograde. And in early 2022, they will be changing from Gemini and Sagittarius to Taurus and Scorpio. And Algol is a fixed star we're going to be talking about, so just keep this in your back pocket for right now. But this little preview of the next nodal activity is conjunct Algol, which we're going to talk about and is kind of part of the story of this year. Any other questions about the eclipses before we move on? Okay. So fixed star Algol, very scary picture. So caput Algol literally means like the head of the demon, or a lot of the times Medusa's head. So I don't know if you're familiar with the Greek myth of Medusa, but she was a maiden temple priestess of Athena, and Poseidon was like enraptured with her beauty and her long hair, and he raped her in Athena's temple. And Athena was so mad at her. I don't know why she wasn't mad at Poseidon, but she turned Medusa into a gorgon, which was a snake demon. And so she had this ability where if a man looked her in the eye, he would turn to stone. So Perseus was a hero, I guess. Depends on your perspective. I kind of feel like Medusa didn't do anything wrong in this scenario, but he needed to kill her, and so Athena gave him this sword and all this stuff to kill her. So he beheaded her. And then it's interesting, I guess Athena might have felt bad because she took the head of Medusa and put it on her shield, and her shield was therefore impenetrable. Nobody could penetrate the shield because Medusa's head and her frightful power was on there. So Algol, right here in this constellation, is the head of Medusa. So just real quick, like, the Greeks weren't the only people that had a kind of dark association with this star. In ancient China, it was called, I'm not sure to pronounce that, but it translates to a mausoleum full of many corpses. In ancient Hebrew, it was associated with Lilith, who was a demon that ate children. Christians, head of Satan, and in Persia, Algol, the demon's head. So fixed stars, just so you know, I don't know if you've noticed, there are a lot of stars in the sky. But not every one of those stars are useful in astrology. You'd be doing charts forever. But there are a few that, like, throughout of all of human history have had special significance. There are 4 called the royal stars, which include Fomalhaut, Aldebaran, Regulus. There's one more. Antares, and those are stars that every civilization in human history has attached special significance to, and there are a few others that are important, and Algol is one of them that has always been watched. And what's interesting about Algol is that it winks. In recent times, we've been able to look at it closely through our telescopes, and it's a binary star, and when they go around each other, it gets dimmer and brighter. But to the ancients, they were very much aware of that, and to such an extent that some battle leaders, generals, wouldn't start a battle when Algol was dimmer because they thought that was a bad omen. So these fixed stars, very important if you get into astrology, because they have a very narrow orb, so like only 1 to 2 degrees on either side. But if you have a planet there, it drastically changes the significance of that planet. So right now, Algol is at 26.10 degrees Taurus, and Taurus is like Earth Mama, kind of chill, like fertile, sensual. So if you have a planet that's in 26 degrees Taurus, it goes from like cool, chill Taurus to like Algol. And also, just because you have a planet on a fixed star doesn't, or specifically Algol, doesn't mean that you are evil by any means, or that you are like a demon or anything like that. It often means that it'll change the significance, as we talked about a little bit. So the reason I bring this up is because there's a few things that like really hit it this year, and given what's going on with the Saturn Uranus square, I just think that it's something to keep an eye out for. So the malefic attributes of Algol do get amplified when Mars is right there, and Mars is going to conjunct it on February 25th, and it's going to be trine Pluto. So I just think that's going to be a heavy day. So maybe just like be a little cautious that day and just kind of observe what's going on around you. And then the 5th, Venus is going to conjunct it, but still trine Pluto. And the reason why I think the trine Pluto is important is because we're going to be talking about the United States is going up to its Pluto return as a country. And this year we get within 1 degree exactly. So the United States is really grappling with its past right now. And I think this kind of like really intense energy of Algol is going to activate that. So it'll be just interesting to see what headlines kind of come up that day. And then we have the first eclipse of the next eclipse series conjunct Algol, like pretty close, like within a degree. I would say that's very significant. So this Algol story is going to be part of that. And then just looking ahead, Uranus is in Taurus, and it's going to first hit that in a few years. So we don't have to worry about 2024 quite yet, but I have done an astrology for the next decade. So I was like living in 2026 and had to reel it back. I was like, we're still in 2020, Megan. Like, no, we don't have to worry about things that are 5 years away. So, okay, yeah. So I talked about it, how it has an association with violence, and it does have a malefic factor, but, you know, when I talk about Mars, for example, Mars can be a malefic planet, but it can also be a protective planet. And when you looked at Medusa's story, she turned men to stone, but she did that because she was protecting herself. Like, she was literally raped in a temple and then had all these horrible things happen to her. And so then she was given a terrible power, but she was using that to protect herself. And then when she was killed, if you look at kind of the archetype of that, she again had this great ability to protect as well. And so a lot of people think, and Algol is one of the 15 Bohemian fixed stars. So I don't know if you guys are into magic at all, or into the Picatrix, which is a medieval text that's all astrological magic. But there was 15 fixed stars that were very significant if you wanted to make like talismans and things like that. And if you look at its significations for magic in the Middle Ages, sure, it had some evil parts, like cutting off a head is pretty gnarly, but it makes the wearer also full of power, bold, magnanimous, preservation, protection, and then rules diamond. Diamonds are a very sought after stone, so it has a lot of power. So if you look at the losing your head and kind of take that on a more archetypal level, it doesn't have to be literally being beheaded. It could be like you're just losing your mind, you're losing your rational faculties. It could be this kind of primal, intense energy. And, you know, I think that people are going to have some of that this next year. I mean, the government has been kind of failing people. People are really struggling. Unemployment's going to be running out for a lot of people. People are being kicked out of their houses. So people are going to have this deep-seated anger, and it's not going to have a place to go. So I'm not surprised that Algol is coming into this story. And then there's one other attribute, witnessing atrocities and kind of looking into the face of evil and not turning away and witnessing that, and giving voice to people that might not have the voice to do that. So yeah, so I know that's kind of intense. Anyone have thoughts or feelings about that before we move on?
It might just be helpful to keep in mind that the sentence for rape in a temple is death. So the fact that Medusa was given the power that she was gotten was actually an act of mercy. And so like I studied Greek mythology quite extensively and did a thesis on it. So like that's actually one of the myths that I covered. And a lot of people's interpretation of that one is slightly flawed, because most people would think that like the punishment Athena should have given her was death. Mm-hmm. But the fact that she gave her something, as you said, to protect herself, and then used her as a form of protection later after her head was removed, goes to show that Athena did pity her.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I find the Medusa myth very interesting as well, and I did not study it, so I did not know that, but that adds significance to Algol, because often what is demonized in a society are things that we don't want to look at or that we don't want to embrace. So any other thoughts you have on this myth that you want to share? Thank you for your expertise.
Well, I guess the only other one is like Athena was also was a goddess in a god's world, so to speak. So the empathy that she had for her was because she could relate to her. Like, her beauty made her a target, and that's pretty common in a lot of the myths that involve women. Because the same is true with Eros and Psyche. So this is like a pretty common trope that appears in all the myths, and it does lead itself more to female agency than some of the other myths do.
Right. Thank you. Does anyone have a planet around Algol, around 26 Taurus?
Megan, how would we find? We would look at the natal chart, right?
Yeah, if you look at the natal chart and you look at the kind of the pie piece where Taurus is, do you have any planet? First of all, look and see if you have any planets in Taurus. And then second of all, see if it's kind of in later Taurus.
Okay, so I see that I do have multiple planets in Taurus, and it's in the 9th house.
Mm-hmm.
And I have Chiron, Venus. And there's something else, and I don't know what that sign means yet. It's an interesting sign. This chart was given to me, and it was using the geocentric tropical Placidus mean number.
Yeah. Can you describe the symbol? Is it like
it's kind of like a moon, half moon, and then there is like a little the lower part that crosses like a line.
I think that's Black Moon Lilith.
Oh, okay. So I have this 3, and it says that Chiron is in 4th degree in Taurus, and Venus 4th degree in Taurus, and that Black Moon is in 25 degrees.
Interesting. So yeah, your Black Moon Lilith is getting close to Algol. 25. Yeah, 25 is within a degree.
Sarah, can you get me the tablet, please?
Ooh.
Sarah,
sorry,
can you get me the tablet so I can pull up my chart?
I
had to clean this table. Can you get me?
Sorry, I muted you, Kim. We could hear you. So your Black Moon Lilith is near Algol, and that's interesting because I tend to interpret Lilith in a chart as like anger and rage, specifically feminine anger and rage. And so I've like a few people that I've done chart readings with that had that like conjunct the midheaven. They worked with women as like counselors and things like that, which was interesting. So they kind of use that energy in a professional way. So having that close to Algol, you might be really kind of in tune with feminine issues and maybe some more of darker experiences that women have had. And that's not to say that you've had them, but you might be in tune with that energy. And in the 9th house, that's kind of education, travel, higher learning, also spiritual truths, kind of your religion. So maybe those significations kind of come out in that way, or maybe if you're like an academic, you've been writing papers on that. There's different ways that those significations could come together, but also that's very powerful. There's like a lot of energy there for sure.
Okay, thank you for the insight. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I have a question. I'm
Sure.
looking at my chart, and it's been a million years since I've looked at my chart, and I'm really not sure what I'm seeing.
No worries. That's why we're here.
I think it's the 4th house, Taurus, and then I see Saturn.
Okay. Can you see what degree it's at?
I've got 2 numbers here. One is 8 and the other is 33.
Okay, so yeah, so it would be the minute and the degrees. So that would be at 8.33 Taurus.
And then there's like a symbol on top of that that looks like the symbol for a prescription. It's like RX.
Oh, retrograde. So it was retrograde in your natal chart.
Yeah.
So 8 degrees, Taurus. Interesting because Uranus is going to be like right on there. Are you planning on moving at all?
This year, no, I didn't have plans. But
yeah, a lot of the times when Uranus is kind of going through your 4th house, well, it'll bring changes to whatever house it's in. So it can indicate moves in the 4th house because that's where your home life is. And if you have Saturn there, Saturn in the 4th house can indicate like a father or a father figure. It can also indicate you feel like an allegiance to your ancestors and family traditions, and you want to kind of bring those forward. And Uranus can maybe bring things that kind of shake those foundations a little bit, not in a bad way. It's always good to kind of check the foundations to see if they're strong. And then, yeah, Saturn doesn't love changing, so Uranus can definitely maybe shake that a little bit. So I would just go with it and kind of see what kind of comes up. The 4th house is your foundation, underground, seeds that have been planted, ancestors. So kind of see what comes up and explore that. I feel like it's going to get hit a lot this year. So
thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else have Taurus placements?
Yes, I do. Taurus is my rising.
Oh, sure. Okay, what degree is your rising at?
I have to look at it. Let me see. So she was talking to me about that yesterday about okay, let me see. Let's see what it is. Let's see. It says it's 24 degrees.
Oh, okay. I think that's a little outside of the orb of Algol. But so yeah, I think the orbs are really tight, but you would know if you relate to this star and how you present yourself to the world. Like, you'll definitely know if it is affecting you or not. Same with all fixed stars. But that is interesting that you have your ascendant in late Taurus because Uranus is going through Taurus, and so that's going to be affecting kind of the way you present yourself to the world, how the world sees you for the next kind of like 6 years or so. So this is definitely a significant time.
So does that also determine, like, as far as thinking about relocating? But then yesterday when she did my chart, she said she didn't say anything about that. But
yeah,
would that show up, or?
It could show up. I would need to kind of see your chart, but also, like, people move all the time. You know, it doesn't have to. But Uranus in the 1st house is more about how you present yourself to the world. So people could like get a different haircut or drastically change their style, or the way people see them is drastically different. It tends to be about you. So if moving is more about you and how you present yourself, then it could be that way. But generally the 4th house is more about moving.
Okay, thank you. Because my Uranus is in Virgo.
Right. But as I kind of said at the beginning, the planets keep moving.
Right.
You know?
Okay.
And so right now in the sky, it's in Taurus. Thank you.
Thank you.
These are great questions. I love looking at people's charts. Okay, so I know I kind of have a bleak view of the United States. Hopefully you guys aren't offended, but we did go over this a little bit of during the election episode. But the United States is coming up on its Pluto return. Let me see, I have the chart. Where is it? Is this it? Yeah, so this is the chart for the US that I use. It's the Sibley chart. And let's see, where's our Pluto? Our Pluto's at 27.33 degrees of Capricorn. And right now in the sky, Pluto's in Capricorn. So ever since it moved into Capricorn, we've been feeling these rumblings. And as Pluto in the sky gets closer and closer and closer, the way kind of like the United States' karmatic repercussions are going to become more acute. I think that's why we're having this like extreme polarization and divide in the United States right now, because there's always kind of been a divide in the United States, and we're just being forced to confront that. And again, I'm not trying to be on a soapbox. I just think it's important for the backdrop of this year, especially because on March 26th, the Pluto in the sky is exactly 1 degree away from the United States' natal Pluto. So remember how I said in March, or how I said when we were talking about eclipses, that March would be important? And this is kind of 3 months after what happens, the ratification of the president and everything. So I just feel like March is gonna be a big month. I don't really know what's gonna happen exactly, but I think there's gonna be some civil unrest, not that there hasn't already been. So just like keep an eye out. I just am saying this to like, so you can be prepared to know what's gonna happen. And then this is looking ahead a little bit. It doesn't get until the exact hit until February of 2022, which again I know is like 2 years away, but just looking ahead. But I think that's really interesting because that's when we have the next midterms. So yeah, I just think that this, again, we don't want to think about the next election cycle because we just got finished with this one. But I think it's going to be like karmatic. So just keep that in mind. People are going to be freaking out. Don't take it personally. Do what you need to do. Just kind of like protect yourself. Know that this kind of tidal wave is coming. Changes are happening. So yeah, so the associations of Pluto. So I use this website called Archetypal Explorer, and I can show up a picture of that later. But this is like directly from that website, and I just thought it was so good that I didn't have to make any changes to it, so I did a direct quote. But these are like archetypal associations with Pluto. So elemental power, intensity, that which compels, empowers, and intensifies, overwhelming, survival, transformation, upheaval, breakdown, decay, fertilization. I love this. Violent purgatorial discharge of pent-up energies. Power struggles, that which is titanic, the often terrifying reality that lurks beneath the surface of things. And this is all kind of what the United States is facing right now. This is the first time it's had to look at itself in the mirror and really decide who it is as a person. I think having Pluto and Capricorn was great for it for building things, because the United States is an empire and it has imparted its point of view onto lots of other people. But now it has to, it had a Machiavellian point of view, and now it has to kind of deal with that. And, it has to decide who it wants to be as a person, which is why I did the snake and the drawing poison from the wound, because all the toxic things it's done has to be expressed upwards to be able to be dealt with. So I just think it's gonna be a little rocky. And maybe we'll, as a country, we'll be able to deal with that and move on and be better, stronger country, or maybe it won't. But that's kind of what's going to be going on. And I just know it's like so toxic on social media and all these different things. So don't, even though all this like massive change is happening in the backdrop, doesn't mean that like we have to be drawn into that. We can still fall in love, have babies, go to work, figure out what we want to do. We still have our own agency and our own lives to live. And it'll be so easy to be drawn into this kind of titanic struggle that's going on. Just know that you can kind of take a break from that and work on yourself, or do what you want to do. So any questions about that? I just had to talk about it because I know it's going to be the backdrop.
So Megan, in reference to this conjunction, so I know Saturn is the planet that rules government and structures and everything like that. So
I follow different, different channels, or so one of the girls was saying that we're going to be seeing a lot of jobs being phased out. A lot of jobs that are done by people are going to be more robotic and like technology based, because we're going into the year of Aquarius. And she was also saying that they're going to, don't be surprised if they try to get rid of like currency, money.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, let's just move on to this. So the Saturn-Uranus square. Hold on to your butts. I love that line from Jurassic Park and feel like it's really what's gonna be going on. So with that great conjunction that's happening, it's happening in Aquarius. And Aquarius is associated with kind of impartial, like objective utilitarian machinery. So, and if you look at the transits for like the next 200 years, which again, if you're not like a crazy person like me, why would you do this? But I'm obsessed and like do this. So they're going forward for like literally the next like 400, 500 years. There's all these major aspects in air signs and in Aquarius. So that just kind of shows you where the trend is going. I want it to be space travel because I'm a nerd and love Star Trek. So I'm like, yes, travel the universe. But that starts with like automation and like currency that's not in person. And I'm also like, I don't want to give up paper money because like, I don't know, I just don't like to be tracked by people. But that's all kind of part of it. There's a positive side and a negative side to a cosmic reality, and all being together on the earth is one. You can't have all these different divides, and it needs to be trackable. So that's going to be a lot of growing pains because yeah, jobs are going to be phased out. It already is phased out. Like, look at what's been going on this year. Everyone's going online. If businesses aren't able to pivot to a virtual realm, then they're kind of closing up shop. Like, we had to pivot online. We were meeting in person, and now we're meeting over a Zoom and being more successful this way because this is kind of the way that the wind is blowing. I do think that there are going to be growing pains about that. But I didn't want to be quite a downer, but I think that we're seeing, so remember when I was saying that this is the reality that we're creating? So I think that the old world kind of ended this year, and now we're moving forward to a new world, and it's going to look different. Does that make sense? So yeah, so let's just talk about this. So Saturn is in Aquarius, and like I said, I do traditional rulerships. So Saturn rules Aquarius, and arguably it prefers to be in Aquarius. So in traditional astrology, there's something called sect. So sect is planets have allegiance to day or night. You can think about it like the political party that they're affiliated with. So the political party of the day is the sun, makes sense. Saturn and Jupiter. The political party of the night is the moon, makes sense. Venus and Mars. And then Mercury goes back and forth because it likes to do its own thing. So Aquarius is a diurnal sign, and Aquarius is a diurnal planet, so you can argue that it likes to be there better. But it doesn't really matter because either way, it has a lot of dignity there. Uranus doesn't love being in Taurus, but it doesn't quite have dignity because it's an outer planet. But Taurus is all about money stuff. It's about food production. It's about natural resources. It's about natural catastrophes. Think about the Earth. So it would make sense that Saturn in Aquarius, kind of this air, a high view planet in this sign affecting money stuff would create more Bitcoin online type of currency. Either way, it's definitely going to create a lot of changes in the United States. So we're going to come back to these dates. So in the United States, every time that there's a major conjunction with Saturn and Uranus, there's some type of shakeup in the economy. A really common cycle to see is that Saturn will have an aspect to Neptune, it'll create a bubble, it'll create an aspect to Uranus, and it'll create a crash. So this is the chart of the New York Stock Exchange. There is an astrologer, Mitch Lewis, who's like the financial astrologer. He used to give astrology advice to stock traders and like made a ton of money. And specifically with commodities, he has this whole thing, because different planets rule different commodities, and he would look at the charts of different stocks versus the charts of the companies. And like, I dropped out of business school, so I didn't have to deal with that, but the economy does rule our lives, so it's important to look at that. And the New York Stock Exchange pretty much is our economy for all intensive purposes of this discussion. So it's interesting to look at its chart when we're kind of going into these types of discussions. So what's really interesting in the New York Stock Exchange chart is that there's an exact opposition between Saturn and Uranus. So that's why that tension is there, and that's why when those planets make aspects in the sky, that it really affects our economy, because this tension is already there. Also, notice the degree and sign of the New York Stock Exchange's Pluto, because that will become relevant for this year's Saturn-Uranus square. I know I'm throwing a lot at you and going fast, so please jump in with any questions or things you need me to explain further. Let's see what else. There's another thing. There's also kind of a loose square to Neptune, which is why that Neptune will create the bubble and the Uranus will create the crash. And we also have Venus kind of creating a square. And Mitch has this whole theory about Venus, which I'm not even going to get into because I don't quite understand it myself. But if you're interested in this type of astrology, look him up online. He has tons of classes and stuff like that. So, some previous crashes of the United States. Panic of 1819. Oh, that should say 1818. My mistake. You will notice that we have Saturn square Uranus, and this is for the July 1st, 1818. And the reason why I chose this exact chart was not only is this when the exact square was, but so there was all this stuff with inflation and like deregulation, and this was when Americans were not really into banks, and so they had to be like seduced into using banks in the first place, because they were like, no, government, stay away from me, this is my money, why would I give it to you? And they finally got Americans to use banks, and then they like messed up with their guess of how to prevent inflation from happening. And this action on July 1st like created a cascading effect of situations that created not only distrust of banks, but a market crash. Doesn't really matter other than look at the astrology. The next one, so the Panic of 1873 was known as the Great Depression until we had the Great Depression. And here we have a Saturn-Uranus opposition. So this chart isn't for the start of that, but it was in the middle of it. And this Panic of 1873 like affected the entire world. France totally ruined their economy. The UK totally ruined their economy. And it was interesting because there was this whole cascade of things that happened before that created this, like the Chicago fire, the Great Boston Fire, and if you notice, there's kind of a lot of fire planets in the sky. So interesting, but all we really need to know is the astrology. So this time we had a Saturn-Uranus opposition. again, look at that degree. Saturn is at 7 Aquarius, right on top of the New York Stock Exchange's Pluto. So then we have the Great Depression. As we know, this was almost a decade long. And here we have a Uranus, Saturn square. And this is for 1931, not the start, but kind of in the middle, like the depths of the Great Depression. 2008 financial crisis. So here we have another opposition, Saturn and Uranus. And I thought this was interesting because this is around the time where the auto companies requested a bailout. So again, Saturn, Uranus opposition. So why am I bringing up all this financial history? Who cares about that? Because this year, on February 17th, we have a Saturn-Uranus square, exact, also in Aquarius, on top of the New York Stock Exchange's Pluto. So, given the history, I just think we're going to have another financial crisis. I am not a financial advisor, and I cannot give you advice. But, you know, if you have lots of stocks, maybe talk to your broker. Just like see what's going on there. So let's look at the dates exactly. So for this year, why I have all these dates here is that, oops, I don't know if you remember January of 2020, we had that Capricorn cluster, and we had lots of planets kind of passing the torch to each other before it led up to the actual conjunction of Saturn and Pluto. And that was when we had the first deaths of the coronavirus, and that story kind of unfolded, and that affected this whole year. So we have something similar going on in January. We have lots of planets kind of hitting the degrees that are going to become sensitive with this square. So I think we're going to get the beginnings of this story in January, and then we're going to see how it plays out in March and in February and March. How are you guys doing? You guys with me? Okay. So we have Mercury here first. Ooh, sorry, I keep doing that. Squaring Uranus, and Mercury is a messenger. So I'm really interested to see what the news stories are that day. Then we have Jupiter squaring Uranus. Jupiter expands. So there could be a surge of the stock market then, kind of a last ditch effort to try and prevent, prevent a further complication. And then we have Mars square Jupiter, and then we have Mars conjunct Uranus. So Mars and Uranus love playing together. Uranus, you can think of right now as like a mad scientist who's creating stuff in the lab. He has all these chemicals, and his buddy Mars comes in, and Mars is like, what if we took all these chemicals and we like blew stuff up? And Uranus is like, that would be a great scientific experiment. Let's go blow stuff up. So the two of them together are kind of combustible. Taurus isn't the most combustible sign, but they still just together, it's like, I don't know, you'd want to keep an eye on them. So I feel like that's going to be an interesting week. And this is all leading up to the square. So I don't know. Mars conjunct Uranus, that's going to be an interesting week. And I feel like we're going to get a lot of clues of what's going to happen. So just kind of watch the news for January, and we'll see how this unfolds. And then, like with all transits of this kind, there's 3 hits. So we have the start of the story on the 17th, and then the second hit on June 14th, and then the third hit on Christmas Eve of 2021. So, let's see. Yeah, I have their charts here. Yeah, so it's going to be the story of the year. So every time this has happened in the past, there's been a depression in the United States. I couldn't imagine why that wouldn't be the case this time, considering the state of the economy right now and how everyone's unemployed, about to lose their homes, things like that. We are kind of teetering on the edge. So again, I'm not trying to say this to be scary. It just kind of is what it is, and it's good to know that this is going on. Hopefully I'm wrong. I would love to be wrong. But the astrology indicates that there's going to be kind of a reset. So, oh yeah. So yeah, and then again, this is just, it's like right on the Pluto. So, yeah, what are your guys' thoughts? No thoughts, just call your stockbroker. I don't have any stocks, so I'm not worried, but you know. Yeah, so, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, so I don't have any stocks either, but I'm kind of reflecting in the last month or so about, 401k savings and, mortgages we have, right? How will all that play out like in the next couple of years? That's also unknown. Could that also be triggered or something that might happen with, like you said, with inflation and...
Yeah, I think that's all going to be affected. A lot of those other examples I brought up, inflation was like a big key. I know a lot of people have been talking about interest rates and how, they might go up. So if you, I recommended to my parents that they locked in their mortgage interest rate at the low, because I know they're low right now. Again, I'm not a financial advisor. I cannot give financial advice. But, if you can lock in low interest rates and things like that, I think it's always just good thing to do. Yeah, I think it's going to be kind of rough for people financially. But kind of what I was hinting at earlier when I was looking at the 2008 crisis and then how the Occupy Wall Street movement came after that, and how, I think there's going to be mass mobilization as well. So I don't think it's just going to be that the economy is crashing. I think people are going to be like real fed up about it. And I think there's going to be a backlash. I don't know if they'll be successful. I don't know how that'll play out, but I think it's going to be kind of volatile. So, again, I'm not saying these things to scare anyone. I just think it's good to be aware and know that that is a strong possibility for what's happening.
Okay.
Anybody else have feelings they want to talk about? I know it's kind of, even though this is like a little bleak, actually let's move on to Venus. So Venus is, I said she's revisiting the ruins this year. I am obsessed with this artist. Her name's Valerie Hagerty, and she creates paintings that look like they're decaying. And I just felt like that was so perfect. Because that's like taking something that could be ugly and trash and making it beautiful. And I kind of feel like that's what Venus is doing this year. So earlier when I was talking about Jupiter is finally getting some dignity back. So although all these kind of heavy outer things are happening, we have the benefics in the sky helping us. So I think they're insulating how we feel about it, and they're insulating our spirit. I think a lot of people felt really bleak and depressed this year, but I think that we're going to be turning a more hopeful corner. So the Venus superior conjunction in Aries is happening. So I'm not going to go over the whole Venus cycle again, but there is a retrograde period. Venus star ascends and makes a superior conjunction with the sun. It descends, goes back into retrograde into the underworld. So the superior conjunction phase is when Venus is like at her most cosmic. She's looking out to the universe. She's becoming one with universal truths, the collective, merging the self with the cosmic. And I feel like that's really, we're going to really need that this year, to find the bigger, more cosmic truths in what we're going through. And at the end of March, sorry, this is really confusing the way I wrote this. It's like shorthand that only I understand. So the sun's going to go from 2 to 8 degrees Aries conjunct Venus, and Venus will be like 1 to 9 degrees Aries. So they're going to be like going back and forth between those degrees over these dates. So it's kind of a prolonged conjunction, and they're eventually going to meet up with Chiron, which is about that wound that does not heal, and it's all in Aries. And Venus in Aries is optimistic, she's childlike wonder, she wants to play. She's about the self and her needs. And usually, like, how does having the self and your needs blend with merging into the cosmic? But I think that this is going to be a really beautiful turning point of when we start to integrating the kind of the trauma of the past year and a half. I think looking at our needs and how we can blend that with the collective will be very healing. I think some great art's going to come out of this, which is just like antibiotics for your soul. And I think that we're going to, having our needs and addressing the collective needs, I think they're going to be more aligned than what we think they are, because our individual needs will be also collective needs. And Chiron is that wound that will not heal. And so the sun in Aries and Venus in Aries being there, I think we'll finally be able to start unpacking that wound and looking at the collective wound and start to kind of address it. So although all these other kind of big, heavy aspects are happening, we also have these more personal planets and benefic planets that are trying to also help us grapple with these changes. So I think that that'll be really nice. And also, Venus does go retrograde at the end of the year. This is another Valerie Hagerty piece called Season's End. And I just like love that it's turning into a tree with new flowers. And this part, Venus going into the underworld, is about looking at things that we haven't wanted to deal with, the duality between beauty and ugliness, love and hatred, rectifying polarity, which is something that we're really going to need. And it's conjuncting Pluto, which again, Pluto has been part of this story with the United States Pluto Return, and it's also going to be going over all of the Capricorn points that were lit up this year in 2020 that caused so much difficulty. So I think it's going to be a little melancholic, but not in a bad way, in a like reflective way. And I think it'll be a little painful, but in the way that healing is painful. And I do think that we're really going to have to mourn the old world, but we'll be in a place where we'll want and be able to do that. And I think it's going to be kind of a weird end to the year, because this starts in the end of December and goes through January. So it kind of brings us into that 2022 story. But I feel like Venus is really pulling a lot of weight this year to kind of help us deal with all these changes. Again, part of what was so difficult about 2020 was that we didn't really have the benefics helping us. And when they tried, they were like completely smushed, outclassed, outweighed by all the malefics. But this year, they're not doing that. And I think if we let them into our lives, that it's going to be very helpful. So yeah, I think that'll be nice. And even though I think this year's going to be full of changes, full of ups and downs, and although not as heavy as 2020, it's still difficult in a different way. I think we're going to have more emotional strength and bandwidth to be able to do that. And, you know, tough times create strong people, and I think everyone's really going to, you know, be a master at dealing with all this stuff by the end of 2021. just try not to get too drawn into all of the drama playing out around you. I mean, if you want to, totally fine, but feel free to step back and pay attention to your heart space, because it'll probably need a little extra care. Yeah. So any questions? I know I kind of threw a lot at everybody. Thoughts, feelings, questions? Want me to go back over anything?
Quick question, Megan. Again, it's me. Since I'm learning this benefics and malefic.
Oh,
so
yeah.
When you said benefics, it's not, we're not going to have them in 2021. Is that?
So, kind of remember how I was saying that different planets have allegiances to sect, so day and night. They also have different kind of classifications on a benefic or a malefic. So benefics are Jupiter and Venus, and they rule things that kind of help us out. So Jupiter, reduction of harm; Venus, love, optimism. They both kind of rule things that would give a human a good day. Whereas Mars and Saturn are more difficult planets. They're called malefics. So separation, isolation, friction. It's not that they're not important and can't bring us good things, but they rule things that like tend to give us a bad day. I have a lot of thoughts on, people like don't like to hear about Mars and Saturn, but I like to equate them to the hero's journey. You become the hero through all of your trials and tribulations. So we're all becoming heroes by the end of this year. But that doesn't mean heroes don't need to like stop at an inn for a night and like hang out with their loved ones. And that would be Jupiter and Venus. And Jupiter specifically had difficulty this year, so it was unable to help us as much as it usually does. It usually is very reduction of harm and prevents like the worst case scenario, and it had no ability to do that in 2020, but it's starting to get that ability back, so it can start to buffer and create a safety net. And I think Venus is going to give us that safety net, or like a healing balm for us personally. And so you have the inner planets, which are kind of like Sun, Moon, Mercury. Sun and Moon are different, but Mercury, Venus, and Mars are personal planets. They kind of rule the day-to-day. Jupiter and Saturn are social planets. They rule kind of our ability to negotiate with society. And then Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are kind of transpersonal planets. They rule like more collective themes, which of course can affect us personally, but their transits affect everybody. Whereas a Venus transit will probably affect you, like your personal day. So the benefics are back to help us in 2021. So the malefics are still there, and they're still like doing their thing to make us heroes, but we have more ability to rest and kind of deal with what's coming.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Megan,
Yes.
I was told that if we did what we're supposed to, this, throughout all these changes that have gone into effect, when Jupiter conjuncts Saturn, if you pretty much went in and learned your lessons and everything like that, that Jupiter will kind of provide a gift for you. Is that true?
Yeah, so sort of. So this whole year we've had a lot of time to kind of dwell with ourselves. I play video games, so my analogy has been, it's been like the mirror level. In video games, the mirror level is when you have to battle yourself. It's like a mirror. So it can be difficult because you know all of your own moves. So people that have really kind of sat with themselves this year and used this time to kind of go internal and kind of like battle their demons and make pivots and be flexible, I think will be in a much better shape to deal with what's happening in 2021.
So kind of like going through your ascending, trying to go within, because I know I have like healed a lot within myself and past traumas, wounds, everything like that. I mean,
Yeah.
The state of this country and with the planets, it's kind of forced you to do it.
Right. So yeah, so we've been forced to be in isolation. Have we used that time to reflect and kind of see what we really need? Or have we been just trying to like kill the pain with like drinking and watching TV? Not that you shouldn't do that from time to time because we all need a break, but like, you know, I know some people who have just really become consumed with anxiety and refuse to have looked at the gift or opportunity this time has been able to bring us. And I think that they're going to struggle next year because they're just waiting for things to get back to normal. And I don't think things are going to get back to normal. So I don't think that the planets will bring a gift necessarily, but it will make you be able to really seize opportunities that other people might not be able to identify.
So during this time frame, it has helped me to go within and kind of become kind of my spirituality, like
That's
as far
great.
as, yeah, so I've taken tarot course, and so I've just opened a lot of avenues within myself, and I belong to a spiritual group on Facebook too, so it's kind of like this whole lockdown, this time frame has just made me go within and kind of like do a deep dive that I felt like I had no choice but to do it, you know?
Yeah. No, and I think that's great. I think that you'll probably now be in a place where you'll really be able to identify opportunities that will feel like a gift because you've now created the space to be able to see them. So it's kind of like, I think that people who haven't dealt with their stuff this year are going to be forced to deal with it next year. So then they're going to feel behind because people that have been really kind of working through what this year has brought are going to be like, okay, I'm ready to pivot. But people that aren't ready to pivot are going to struggle with being forced to pivot. Does that make sense?
Yes, and like some people, like friends of mine, I tell them, it's because of this is going on with the planets. Well, you don't know what you're talking about. I said, okay, well, you'll see.
Yeah, people are ready to hear what they want to hear about. I didn't say that at the beginning, but the reason I started this group was because, and I say this every time, so sorry for people that always come and hear me say this, but I started this group because my friends and family were like, Megan, I love you, but I cannot listen to you talk about astrology anymore. It sounds like I can't. So I was like, okay, I hear what you're saying. I appreciate the feedback. I'm going to start a group where we can talk about astrology all the time.
But I don't understand why not. It's like fascinating. And when you go outside and you look in the sky and you see the planets and everything, and I mean,
I hear you. I don't know how they're not interested about it, but they were like, girl, stop. And I was like, okay. But I was forced to create a new community, and now all of you guys are here and we can talk about all this stuff, and it's great because we can feel like it's a safe space where we can really express these things. We don't have any haters that are like, I don't want to hear about Mars anymore. And I'll be like, okay, well,
Mars.
I don't talk about it.
Speaking of Mars, that was a doozy.
Oh yeah, the Mars and yeah. I know. Luckily, Mars only goes retrograde like every 2 years, so we have some time off before Mars does that again.
And then the retrogrades, those they hit pretty hard too.
Yes. Yeah. So I didn't like do all of that minutia for this year because I wanted to pull out the themes, and then each month we kind of go over the kind of details of the month. So we'll go over the retrogrades, lunations, etc. I do have some for this year. I feel like there's like big things happening, so like all the minutia doesn't really matter for December. It's like we're all tired that like Venus and Mars or in Mercury transit's really not gonna like make a difference at this point. But we do have, speaking of that, 2 lunations, the eclipse tomorrow. So anybody who has a lot of Sagittarius or Gemini planets have been like feeling it this year and are gonna feel it next year. And then we have the full moon at 8 Cancer. And then we have the ingresses and the Great Conjunction. So this is like pretty much what's going on this month. I would really recommend for people that if you have been working on things and want to launch something, this is a great time to set intentions, because this is going to be like, these conjunctions happen every 20 years. So, and this one in air, or the change of the elements, happens every 200 years. And then air only happens every 800 years. So this is pretty special. And I think the last one was in Aquarius, if I remember correctly, was in like 1200 something. I have the details from last month, but I did not prepare it for this month. But so this is special. So if you really want to start something, if you've been working hard all year to kind of create this new space and create this new opportunity, like, ride this wave, because this is the time to do it. Like, seize this opportunity. So like, if you wanted to do your tarot, like, I don't know, start a YouTube channel reading tarot. That's very popular on YouTube.
I've been working on it. I mean, I've been working on it, and I also have angel cards too. So I've just been kind of, you know, and I did a manifestation meditation last night and an angel meditation. So
yeah, if everyone wanted to do a like new intention meditation on the 21st, I think that would serve everybody well.
because YouTube has some wonderful videos to do meditations.
Yes, there's tons of free information on YouTube for sure. And I will be posting this on YouTube, so you'll be able to rewatch this video if you want.
Oh, that's awesome.
Megan, quick question. Sorry to interject. So with these intentions, I also came across someone was mentioning about that this is like a conjunction. It's almost like a culmination, right? They just like really highest point, but the building up was also already was happening prior to that. So if I've started something new couple of months ago, I'm already kind of in that cycle of setting the intention. Is that the case?
Yes. So conjunctions are like the culmination for sure, and especially something like this. When there's these 200-year periods, there's oftentimes like a little preview, and the little preview of this cycle happened in the 1980s. So that's when the internet was born. So that gives us a clue of kind of like where this is going. And so I think this year was about breaking things down, but if you've done that, you're definitely already starting to feel this energy happen. As you were mentioning with Mars, like that, all the big stuff of this year has finished. We're done with it. And so now kind of this is all that's left, this eclipse tomorrow, and then this conjunction. And this conjunction is really setting the stage for like the next 200 years. So I think we've all been feeling this change that's happening. We just know that it hasn't happened yet. It's almost like we're in the last chapter and we know the book's almost over, but we just have to finish it. So I think it's good to start that intention and things that you've been doing for sure to prepare for this. Absolutely, I'm sure you've been feeling it more, especially people that are here. You guys are in tune with the cosmic energies, I'm sure. So yeah, I wouldn't be doubting yourself, and know that if you've been feeling something starting to build, this is probably when it's going to start to, you know, become outside of you instead of just inside of you. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else have thoughts and feelings about this?
So we have a full moon coming up on December the 29th, so we're supposed to like set new moon intentions, right?
Yeah, if you want to. I think that you're probably better served to do Great Conjunction intentions, and then you can just like keep them going with the full moon. I don't think that this full moons are always impactful, but I think that it's like the third important thing of this month. Probably the Great Conjunction 1, the eclipse tomorrow 2, and then the full moon 3.
So Okay, so for verification purposes, for an eclipse, is that felt like 3 to 6 months after?
Yeah, so it can even be felt like a few years after, especially if it's a solar eclipse. But I think in this case, given all the things that are going to be happening in February and March, we're going to really feel the effects of this eclipse probably around then. Kind of just given everything that's going on. I think that we're probably going to see the tendrils of this. We probably already have started seeing the tendrils of it because its sister eclipse was a few weeks ago. The other eclipse, I don't have the date on me, but I'll look it up and write it down for you guys in the meetup. And so that happened, and we'll probably feel the culmination of that energy 3 to 6 months from now, and then we're going to have the other set of the eclipses, and that kind of brings that energy forward.
Thank you.
I think that this full moon will just kind of be emotional because Cancer is emotional and the moon, its home domicile is Cancer. And let's face it, we're all gonna be a little emotional when this year ends. We're gonna be like, thank God it's over, and like,
And then
happen.
And then people, I know when these moons, I have like 2 placements in Scorpio. So whenever we get any type of energy, I always feel it. Like
Yeah.
with 12 yesterday, I felt that.
Yeah,
So
that's great. Well, then you'll definitely feel all this stuff that's coming up. It'll be a month. Good thing you've started meditating so you can integrate everything.
I'm trying to do it every day consistently.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so that is all I have for today. Happy to answer any other questions. I'm Megan. I don't even know if I introduced myself. I'm Megan, and I am at Healing Meadows Wellness. I do readings. Happy to answer any questions if you just want to email me. We do these every month. I will be putting up the next few months worth of meetings up. Oh, anybody have any like, I usually take requests for the next month, the deep dive that we do. So anybody have a particular deep dive that they want to do? Want me to teach about? If not, I just pick something.
Oppositions.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we could do like a natal chart review for January if you guys wanted to do that. I feel like we haven't done that in a while, and maybe I'll pick like a specific part of the natal chart to really go over, and so we can look at how that plays out in everyone's chart. So we can do that.
Yes.
And then, and if anybody else has, things that they want to do, feel free to email me, message me in the meetup, and I can add that as well. But yeah, we can go over charts for sure.
So this replay, this will be on YouTube if you want to see it again. Okay.
Exactly. And I'll post that in the meetup group.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Megan, I looked at the natal chart, and the Black Lilith moon, I think that's not it.
Okay.
Sorry for my drawing, but the sign looks like this.
Oh, yeah. Then that might be an asteroid. I think I would need to see.
Okay.
So yeah, so next time when we have our charts, if you want, you can use astro.com, or you can send me your birth time and date, and I can pull it up. I have professional software, so I can do that, and we can just have it in my database, my ever-growing database. And that way, we'll know. I'll know all of those symbols because I'm very familiar with that software.
Good for me to learn what that symbol means too. That would be great. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Of course. Yeah, send that to me, and I'm happy to send you like a PDF of your chart back so you have it as well.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Megan, I have a question. So
Sure.
in this group also, do you talk about like as far as compatibility with different signs, planets, things like that? What, different characteristics of the different signs and the elements? Do you do any of that?
Yeah, I mean, we could. It's pretty much just been like open. So we've done deep dives on the planet Saturn. We've done the Venus cycle, and then we tend to like look at it in your chart. I have the previous PDFs that I could also send to people. So you see them, or the previous presentations, so you have the information. Last, we did the astrology of the election cycle. Trying to think of what else we did.
So Joe Biden,
Yeah, we looked at his. We looked at Trump's.
he has. I have the same birthday as him.
Oh,
So, but they were saying, and Trump is a Gemini with Leo rising.
yeah.
So, have you been following any of that?
Oh yeah, we did like a whole deep dive on that. We did their zodiacal releasing. We did like their relationship to the United States chart. We did the astrology of election day and how it played up against that. We did all of those things. So yeah, when we do a deep dive, we really kind of go into it. Trying to see what else we did. Yeah, so happy to do happy to take requests, because the goal is that we're all kind of learning as well. We want to learn, we want to talk, explore, all things astrology. So next week or next month, I'll put up the dates on the meetup. I will send the link for this. I will prepare for reading our natal charts and pick out some things to learn that we can all focus on, and then kind of go from there. Sound good?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You're
Yes,
very
thank you.
welcome.
Thank you very much.